The world has been quiet for almost 12 years as one of Hollywood's famous dads and his only daughter grew apart. The quiet has finally been broken, and the truth is a lot worse than anyone could have thought. People used to call Suri Noel Shuri Cruz. She didn't want to grow up famous, but she did. She was born famous, grew up in secret, and couldn't see her father because of forces too strong for a child to understand. She is 19 years old, though, and does more than just talk. Even people who remembered the perfect family that used to smile on red carpets were shocked by what they heard. This is the true story of a father who saw his daughter leave him, and a daughter who watched her father grow up from afar. The dream that started like a movie. When Tom Cruise and Katie Holmes met for the first time in 2005, this kind of story was already making the rounds. Katie, who was 26 years old, had just finished watching Dawson's Creek. She looked like a dreamer from a small town, and she was starting to become an actor. Tom was already well known when he was 43 years old. He made it possible for movies like Top Gun, Jerry Maguire, and Mission Impossible to come out. Katie really liked them too. She told 17 magazine many years ago that she wanted to marry Tom Cruise. At that time, it sounded simple and almost girly. It was never expected to happen. It is said that Tom told his friends, "I'm going to marry her," as soon as he saw her. It only took a few weeks for the impossible to happen. There was no denying the link. They loved each other very much. As they laughed like kids in Rome, they were seen holding hands and showing how much they loved each other. Everyone saw Tom, who was shy and quiet most of the time, turn into a guy who was crazy about love. Something happened after that made everything different. His reaction was so strange and Tom Cruise-like that I will never forget it. He jumped on the couch on the famous Oprah Winfrey show and said, "I'm in love." Some people thought it was sweet. Some people were scared by it, but no one could ignore it. Their daughter Suri was born on April 18th, 2006. The baby was a sign of how quickly they fell in love. Tom said that her birthday was the happiest day of my life. He often talked about her as if she were a miracle. But it was Scientology that changed his life and made that surprise happen. Since Katie went to Catholic school in Toledo, she now has to get used to a whole new world. Scientology rules controlled her pregnancy and the birth of Suri. Like, during the quiet birth, no one was allowed to speak in the delivery room. Tom even bought a sonogram machine to keep an eye on the baby himself. Some people thought it was weird or even dominating, but for him it was love. Their wedding in November was in the news and made people dream. The event took place at the Odescalchi Castle in Bracciano, Italy. The castle is thought to be from the 1400s. It cost a lot of money. Katie was dressed in clothes by Giorgio Armani. Tom was pretty happy. Some of the people who went were the Beckhams, Will Smith, and Jennifer Lopez. Behind the smiles, Katie's parents were scared. They were upset that the church was now active in their daughter's life, since they had been Catholic for a long time. Just as they thought it would, the fairy tale quickly changed into something else. A life ruled by faith, power, and secrets. It was love for Tom. That was the first time Katie felt alone. Suri's life would never be the same again because of this. The ideal family splits up. In 2007, it looked like Tom Cruise and Katie Holmes could not get hurt. They looked like they came straight from a Hollywood movie. There are private jets, red carpets, and magazine covers. No one could have a better family than the world's most famous person, his beautiful wife, and their daughter. Even though the outside looked perfect, something was starting to fall apart inside. Katie's friend said she rarely showed up by herself. People in Tom's inner circle, who were often active in Scientology, were always right behind her when she went out. Even when she went on casual trips, she was always with quiet, watchful people who seemed to be filming everything she did. Journalist Maureen Orth noticed that they seemed a little uncomfortable with each other over dinner one night. Katie grinned at the people who came up to their table and said, "Oh, we don't go outside very often." This may not have seemed like a big deal, but anyone who knows how strict Scientology is would know it was. Tom was still the same strong, sure of himself, sweet, and religious guy he had always been. He was already one of the most well-known Scientology supporters, and he helped get the word out about the Celebrity Center and defended it against critics. He didn't think that way about the church. It had truth discipline, and hope in it. Katie thought there was no way she could cross that line again. Martin and Kathleen Holmes, her parents, watched everything from the outside and got more and more scared. They were strict Catholics, so they had always been wary of Scientology's secret leadership. Over time, they didn't know how to get in touch with their daughter. Katie's friend said she became distant, almost automatic, and kept saying nice things about Tom like, "He's great." She lost her shine as if she were training when she said, "He's great." Nick Kidman and Tom adopted 2 kids, Bella and Connor. Both of them were already devoted Scientologists with strong ties to the church. Tom could see that Suri would do the same thing. Katie didn't want to give up her daughter to a system she didn't understand, though. I could hear her steady retreat. By 2010, there were reports that Katie felt trapped. She spent more time in New York without Tom, got back in touch with old co-workers, and stopped going to some church events. She was planning something very important and gathering information behind the scenes. By 2011, the cracks could no longer be hidden. Katie's looks and movements got stiffer when she was in public. They no longer see a story. They see fear. As she held her daughter's hand tighter than before, she tried to find a way out. There was an escape that shook the world and put an end to the idea that Hollywood had the perfect family. Everyone was shocked by the daring escape. June 29, 2012. When everyone woke up, there was a treat. Katie Holmes asked the judge to keep Tom Cruise and her away from each other. It was cold, planned ahead of time, and happened just a few days before his 50th birthday. It wasn't just a breakup. The purpose was to keep people alive. In later interviews, Tom said that he didn't think it would happen. He said in a low voice, "It hit me hard." That's how life is. Katie had been planning behind the scenes for months, and she moved as if she knew someone was watching. She fired workers she thought were working for Scientology, hired new security guards, and bought new cell phones. Every move and call was planned. Her father, Martin Holmes, a smart lawyer, was her silent leader. He helped write a prenuptial agreement years ago, and he is now using it to protect her independence. Katie chose New York over California because she knew that California's laws would favor the parent seeking sole custody. While Tom was filming Oblivion in Iceland, she filed the documents to keep them secret. He read about the split in the news, just like everyone else. For a man who was in charge of everything in his life, it was the worst loss of control. Later, court documents showed Katie's reason: self-defense. She wanted full custody of their 6-year-old daughter Suri and full control over her education, health care, and religious beliefs. When they were together, the church was all around them, and Katie later said that she couldn't handle the thought of Suri being thrown into the Sea Org program when she got older. The court case ended almost as quickly as it started. The divorce was finalized in 11 days, and Tom agreed to pay Suri $400,000 a year in child support until she turned 18. This would cover all of her needs, plus extra costs for things like school, insurance, and medical care. Katie didn't want money. She wanted mental, physical, and legal distance. The day after the deal, she and Suri left Los Angeles. On their way back to New York City, the media saw them walking hand in hand through Chelsea. Katie looked tired and free. For the first time in years, she really smiled. When Suri was quiet, he was free. Her father, who used to praise her on red carpets and call her his wonder, was no longer with her. He was gone, not mad or ready to fight. A new life began in such a peaceful place. None of the plot points could have come from Scientology or Hollywood. We've lost these years. After Tom and Suri's divorce, their lives changed a lot. In 2013, he gave an unusual deposition as part of a legal case. He was asked if Katie had left him to protect Suri from Scientology. At first, Tom thought the question was rude, but later he said it was true as one of the assertions. It was the most he had ever talked about the difference. Reports said Tom had only seen Suri once, for a short time, after they broke up that same year. After that, there were no photos, confirmed sightings, or visits. Tom spent the next few years focusing on his work. The mission, impossible sequels, Top Gun, Maverick, Globe Tours, and gravity-defying stunts were all big hits. Fans cheered every time he jumped off a cliff or hung from an airplane. While his youngest daughter grew up away from him, Katie tried to bring normalcy back into Suri's life. She put her in a private school in Manhattan and took her to dance classes, coffee shops, and parks. People who knew Suri said that, for such a famous child, she was surprisingly grounded, nice, and smart. Katie kept her out of the spotlight, so there won't be any interviews, red carpets, or other Hollywood chaos. As a teenager, Suri looked a lot like her mother. She had the same sense of freedom, the same shy smile, and the same gaze. But whenever her father came up, she would quietly change the subject. Tom never brought her up again in public, but people close to him said that he continued to pay for her medical care and schooling. It was more than 10 years before they were photographed together. The father who could get everyone to pay attention couldn't go back to his daughter's life because it seemed like two worlds had moved to different parts of the universe. A new name, a new life. By 2021, Suri was an independent woman who went to the famous LaGuardia High School of Music, Art, and Performing Arts in New York. This school was the inspiration for the movie Fame. With her friends, she performed, sang, and made short films. But one choice showed something more important. In the program for the senior show she was in, The Addams Family, her middle name, Suri Noel, was written instead of her real name, Suri Cruz. This choice wasn't made just on stage. It has to do with identity. When she graduated in June 2024, her name was written on the official list as Suri Noel with no Tom. His fans were heartbroken when they saw him at a Taylor Swift concert in London, thousands of miles away from where he had been in 2006. Katie, on the other hand, was in New York with the other parents, quietly crying and shaking her head. She found it hard to accept that her daughter had grown up without her father or Hollywood. Later that summer, Suri started at Pittsburgh's Carnegie Mellon University and decided to major in fashion. Katie helped her move the boxes into her room. A mother and her daughter were doing what all families do when there were no cameras or reporters around. In the fall, Katie worked on a new movie called Happy Hours with Joshua Jackson, her former co-star from Dawson's Creek. Suri visited the scene while filming in 2025. She was calm, confident, and 19 years old. She was wearing a white tank top, green leggings, and red sneakers. Her identity was unknown, but her message was clear. She was no longer Tom Cruise's child. She was finally free, but the sad news is that she had been kidnapped and was found sitting on a doorstep in New York in October 2025 with her head in her hands. She looked tired and thoughtful. Soon after, Katie came riding up in an Uber and sat down next to her to calm her down. They had a private talk before going out to get treats together. From the outside, it looked like a normal mother-daughter conversation. But people who have been following their stories saw it as proof of how much they have relied on each other since the day everything changed. Suri is now a sophomore in college and 19 years old. She writes songs, studies fashion, and tries to figure out who she is. She hasn't talked to her father in 12 years, and they haven't been seen together in public. But he still pays for her medical bills and college tuition. At the same time, Tom's career continues to grow. Celebrity Dad wants to go beyond Earth and is getting ready to shoot in orbit with SpaceX and NASA. He might never be able to connect with his younger daughter, though. Many people who know Katie's family say she has tried to stay calm and focus on being thankful and growing. Seeing how strong and independent her daughter is makes me so proud. She says, calling Suri an incredible person. Even though Suri has a new identity, she still has to carry the weight of a story that isn't her own. The story of this family has been told all over the world for 19 years, like an unfinished movie. The daughter who chose to leave her father's shadow quietly, and the father whose performances will live on in memory. The question now is whether Suri Noel will ever let her father back into her life, or will they always be apart as she goes her own way? What do you think? Can the damage done by silence be fixed with time? Are there gaps that are too big to fill? Write your thoughts in this spot. Don't forget to click the bell, like, and follow for more stories that show how fame and family really work.